I'd like to invite you to embark with me on a journey to a new world. But for that, I first need to ask you, how many senses do we have? We all know the basic five: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. We also have the sixth sense, which many call intuition, but it could also be named mind, thinking, thought process, feelings, or perception of existence. Some argue that our immune system is a sense as well, the capacity to defend our body from invaders. There is also a system that proposes that every sensation our nervous system can detect is a separate sense. But to me, that is too subjective. For the exercise that I'd like to propose here, I want to stick to the concept of the basic five senses, meaning our capacity to detect information from the environment and bring that to our awareness. We can safely smell things, touch and feel their texture, see light, hear sounds, and taste, one of the greatest pleasures in life, unless it's medicine. Can you think of another sense we might have? Take a minute and think about it. I bet it's much harder than you think. In fact, it's impossible, and I'm going to prove why. Let's invert the question. Instead of thinking of a new sense we might have, let's try and think about a new world in which one of our five senses does not exist. For instance, hearing. Can you picture a society in which the sense of hearing does not exist? How would that be? I bet the first thing that comes to mind is quiet, very quiet. But let's think this through. Would that world really be quiet? Imagine our cars, our elevators, our air conditioning, our washing machines. That world would be noisy as hell. Imagine if every machine ever invented did not have the constraint of noise. That world would be unbearably noisy. We just wouldn't have the capacity to notice it. We don't have the sense of hearing. We cannot hear all that noise, all that sound. We can even say that that world would be a little sad because we would not have music. We would not have sound effects in movies. We would not be able to notice the sound of nature, the sound of the ocean, the sound of the waves, one of my favorite sounds in the world. But another thing that would not exist in that world is the words that we use to describe sound. Words such as sound, noise, music, singing, maybe speaking, listening. Those words would not have been invented. We would not need them for anything. Our perception, our very existence is predicated into our communication, even to ourselves. And if those words don't exist, we cannot perceive what exists. And that's why it's impossible to think about a new sense we might have, because even if we have it, we don't have words to describe it. Now let's add a little twist to our world. Let's imagine that a very small number of people can actually hear. Some have a very mild sense of hearing. They can hear noise, but they cannot distinguish between sounds. The world is overwhelming for them. They get more headaches than the average person. They don't like to go out as much. They might even have some quirky habits like preferring to take the stairs instead of elevators, or overheating inside their homes instead of turning on their conditioning, because the noise is just unbearable for them. Others have a very sharp sense of hearing. They know that it's raining without looking out the window. They know their neighbor is going through a hard time because they can hear their crying every night. They know if a pup is barking to play or because it's scared. They know that there has been a car accident right down the corner that nobody even saw. They can tell the difference while no one else can. Can you imagine being one of those people? The person that can hear when no one else can? It sounds like a gift, doesn't it? Maybe you can use it to get ahead in your career, as a scientist, as a vet, as a detective. Or maybe you wouldn't be able to learn how to read because all the noise around you prevents you from concentrating on the school lesson. How do you think people would perceive you? Or worse, label you? Crazy? Special? Psychic? Guru? Would they say that you have a learning disability? How would life be for you, clearly living in a world that was not meant for you? You would not like TV, to say the least. You'd hate car rides and restaurants. Imagine how strange a person who prefers to go out on a rainy day because the traffic is more bearable. But you'd love nature. You'd love the sound of the ocean, the waves, the sound of the birds, the sound of the rain. You'd have a connection with nature that no one else can. Maybe you'd hide your psychic abilities just to fit in, to avoid the judgment or scaring people. Maybe you'd struggle to learn or to work because all the noise around you is just unbearable and you cannot stop it. Even if you manage to live a relatively normal life, you'd still have preferences and limitations that nobody can understand, and many would not even have the courtesy to respect. But the worst part of all of it is that you would not be able to explain. Remember? You don't have words to explain what is it that you perceive. You can say that you are overwhelmed or tired or sad or have a headache, but you cannot explain why, because words such as noise, sound, listening, hearing have not been invented in this world. They don't exist. Can you feel it in your gut, the void of having this amazing ability or disability and not being able to explain it? Not being able to appreciate it? Take a minute to feel it. That is exactly how it feels to be an undiagnosed autistic adult. You spend a lifetime just trying to fit in. You are aware that something is off about you, and you cannot explain to anybody what it is, not because you don't want to, but because you don't know how. And even when you try with doctors or therapists, you are met with judgment, with invalidation, and absolutely nobody cares or appreciates the effort that you had to make to get this far. Nobody appreciates the effort that you make every day just to get by. An overwhelmingly noisy world in which only you and a few others can hear, while everyone else takes for granted the absolute silence in which they live. Thanks for watching. I'd like to extend these words not only to the autistic community, but to all forms of neurodivergency and so many life affections that I just don't know enough to name. If this message resonates with you, this message is about you. Please share it with someone else. Thank you.